grace and peace. Welcome to another episode of the TBT Show. I'm Anthony Moat, my friend and brother, partner in crime, as always. Is the Right Reverend Elder Sean P. Aguilar. Sean, how are you?
Man, fantastic and phenomenal, buddy. Love it.
Yeah, you love it?
Love it.
Yeah.
Great time to be alive.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't know the alternative, so yeah, great time to be alive. Man, there's a lot going on in our world, but of course, the theme of that's been buzz in the last few weeks, and actually, and at one point, I think I want to sit down and talk to some historians about what it means to be anti-Semitic, and not just the phrase that this culture keeps throwing around.
Well, it used to mean that you were against the Semites.
Well, okay.
I'm not a Latin scholar.
Okay.
But the prefix "anti" would mean against.
Right.
Reverend?
Yeah.
And Semite, you put that, which is a people group, you would say against the Semites.
But in this generation, now anything that we don't like or agree with, we just label it certain things, and so that would be fun to jump into. Just that, like, because again, we keep saying, well, it used to mean this or that used to mean that,
right?
And over time we change,
right?
What things mean.
So and calling all anthropologists,
right.
And sociologists,
right?
Show us through time and history,
right?
How this has evolved
and changed,
right. Because we may not know exactly how or when, but you can tell from the beginning and from the end, there's a big difference. Big difference. Big difference. And so, you're absolutely right. It's just getting thrown around now to, this is something I don't like. Now it's evil.
Right. And I think last week, one day, when you sent me that clip of Malcolm X saying the same thing, even in their generation, it was changing.
Right.
And so he said, well, yeah, anything we don't like, we just label it, anti-Semitic. And so, again, that's something we could jump into. But what's, I know we had a couple things that we wanted to hit first. Was that Dave Chappelle thing? Man.
Yeah, the Dave Chappelle Saturday Night Live monologue.
Classic. That
instant.
Was classic.
Instant. First of all, Dave Chappelle is one of my favorite comedians of all time. My guy. And I don't really watch Saturday Night Live as a habit.
It's been watered down since its heyday.
Yeah, right. Since since it was really star-studded of the many classes of comedians over the years, and there's some bright spots, that I do catch clips, but it's not the same as, like, man, I got to watch the episode, right? This whole episode, right? But it came across my desk, and it was 15 minutes and 22 seconds of comedy brilliance.
I mean, from the very beginning, Dave is just super, and he has a certain knack of how to make what is super, super serious, super funny.
Right.
And not only make you laugh at it, but make you laugh at how you respond to
and think. And maybe even challenge some assumptions of certain people in his audience, because he's not afraid to challenge his audience's assumptions. And actually, sometimes it's funny to watch him intentionally lead someone down a particular line of thought, only to pull the switcheroo at the end, and reveal, either his real thought or reveal to that assumptive audience member that, hey, you thought about this way, but have you considered this, And so,
he did a couple things that were very, very funny. But toward the end, he was talking about, like, it's just dangerous to talk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to talk anymore. Like,
yeah.
He's like, no knock on this audience. I love y'all. I don't want to get them mad, or I don't want them to, whoever them are. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of forcing you to think like, really that because I think, especially in this generation, it's a thin line between love and hate. And sometimes we, when someone says something we don't like, we lump that person into that, that thing. So it's not just that we hate, what they said or what they did, but we hate, them. And so for him to kind of go there, just kind of, I see everything biblical. It's like, David, like, what? He did what? Man, he did what? You the man.
Right.
Exactly. He's like whoever they are. And Correct. It's like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Right. Which classic Dave Chappelle, but
right.
I mean the entire thing was super funny and super relative.
And the funny thing is that somebody that's a buddy of Dave Chappelle's, Jon Stewart, who's also a comedian, who's also lives in, I want to say he lives in the Brooklyn area.
Okay.
Which is, also, the current home of Kyrie, in terms of his.
Yeah, the Mecca of all the confusion.
Right. Don't say the Mecca. And so,
my bad.
Don't say the Mecca. And so that might be considered anti-Semitic. Right. So, but I like Jon Stewart's take, and Jon Stewart is very liberal. Okay, very liberal. But I like a lot of the things that he says, and I like what he said here because he talked about somebody calling him, "Hey man," like another comic. It's like, "Hey man, did you see what Dave did on Saturday Night Live?" Look at his response. So and I'm taking this from an article in Variety. Dave said something in the SNL monologue that I thought was constructive, which he says, "It shouldn't be this hard to talk about things." Furthermore, he says, "I'm called anti-Semitic because I'm against Israel's treatment of Palestinians. I'm called other things from other people based on other opinions that I have, but those shut down debate. Whether it be comedy or discussion or anything else, if we don't have the wherewithal to meet each other with what's reality, then how do we move forward? If we just shut it all down and then we retreat to our little corners of misinformation and it metastasizes. The whole point of all of this is to not let it metastasize and get it out in the air and talk about it." So that's, close quote, Jon Stewart.
Right.
And this is a guy that is Jewish, that lives a large part of his life, in Brooklyn. And it's also a comedian.
Right.
So,
right.
And he's defending, Dave Chappelle, because a lot of people are now
criticizing,
coming in on Dave Chappelle because now it's trendy.
Right.
To label
everything,
anything that has a whiff. You see what I'm saying? Oh, that's anti-Semitic.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Right. And so, I think that we need to heed Jon Stewart's warning, because it's going to get to a point where everybody is siloed off. Everybody goes to their corners, and you can't have dialogue. You can't have debate. No one's seeking understanding.
Right.
And I mean, in order for communication to happen, that requires someone that's willing to listen, to understand.
Right. And
well, not necessarily to accept,
but to understand. Right.
It's kind of like, I'm not saying he killed her, but I understand. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Chris Rock was talking about OJ,
Right.
I'm not saying he, and so that's kind of the deal. But it's gaining an understanding of someone's perspective, not necessarily that you agree, but we can disagree, and we can present the counterpoint and have, healthy debate and dialogue.
Right.
But I think we're just jumping the gun.
Yeah.
We're just jumping the gun because nobody wants to be left without a chair when the music stops.
Right.
So it's like, I gotta call out the anti-Semitism so that I myself am not called out as an anti-Semite.
Right.
Because then you're a supporter or collaborator if you're too slow.
And that's what I didn't like about what's going on. Because now everyone feels that they have to run through the situation and choose a side.
Choose a side.
Instead of everybody just sitting back going, and maybe it's not what we're considering it to be. Or let's just say it is. Then why is it? Then what is the mindset? Because again, just this generation, we can disagree without being disagreeable. Mm-hmm. And at least, much like, what we do, you're usually wrong, but I understand why you're wrong.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or, and if that's your mindset that you're right and everybody else is wrong, at least understand why they feel the way they do. Not that that'll change your mind, but at least it'll help you see, the 360 view of whatever the issue is.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you're engaged in debate and discussion, you're not qualified to respond to somebody. If you're going to answer in good faith, mm-hmm. you're not qualified. You're not in the correct frame to even start giving a comment unless you can properly articulate someone else's position to them.
Right.
And this is something
that requires an understanding of that.
Right. If you study formal debate,
right.
So what you're saying is ... and give the person the opportunity to correct your assumptions. Then once you've properly restated their position to them and you have a clear understanding, then you can offer your critique, your counterpoint, your contribution to the conversation.
Right.
You know. Right. But what's happening is that there's no level check.
Right.
There's no sound check, it's just yelling to the mic.
Right.
It's none of that. And so, and Jon Stewart, continued his comments, by extension, working backwards from Dave Chappelle to Kyrie, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so he says of Kyrie, this is a grown, mm-hmm. fill in the blank man. The idea that you would say to him, we're going to put you in a timeout. You have to sit in the corner and stare at the wall until you no longer believe that the Jews control the international banking system. We will never gain any kind of understanding with each other, Stewart said. Penalizing somebody for having a thought, I don't think is the way to change their minds or gain understanding. See, sometimes because a comedian says it, we just look to them for the punchlines.
Right.
But it's like, they can also sometimes be a thought leader.
Right.
And so here's again, and I say again, Jon Stewart, a Jewish comic from Brooklyn, or that lives a large part of his life in Brooklyn, is observing the situation and telling you, this is ridiculous.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
Right.
Right.
And then even, pointing out how ridiculous that is, and this may be going too far. So, I read it in a couple spots. I know the New York Post did it, where Adam Silver had this one-on-one conversation
mm-hmm. with the Times,
with the New York Times.
Yeah.
So he has this one-on-one conversation that he intended to have from the very beginning with Kyrie. And his commentary after their conversation is, I don't think that Kyrie is, is what people call him, or is, anti-Semite, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, and I'm thinking like, and of course it's like, cool. And I'm reading through the article, but I'm, frustrated as I'm reading, because I'm like, that's a conversation that should have been had on the top end, mm-hmm. or before any kind of punishments or anything like that were levied. Because now, okay, you're saying, oh no, Kyrie's good. He's not an anti-Semite. Mm-hmm. So he got suspended for 5 games with no pay. Mm-hmm. Is somebody gonna give him his money back?
Somebody tell Kelvin Cato, we want our money back.
I just don't get.
But here's how he could do that. Let me show you this. This guy's crafty.
Right. Okay.
Watch what he did. Look at this. So he said, we had a direct and candid conversation, said Silver, who is Jewish, said in an interview, he's someone I've known for a decade. I've never heard an anti-Semitic word from him or frankly hate directed at any group. But look at what he says to preserve his opportunity to outrage. Watch this. In a follow-up phone conversation, Silver added, whether or not he is anti-Semitic is not relevant to the damage caused by the posting of hateful content. So on the one hand, he wants to say, hey, you know what, Kyrie, you're not an anti-Semite in your belief.
Right.
But I want to reserve the opportunity to be outraged because you were anti-Semitic
in the tweet
in your behavior.
Right. Okay. Which is crazy.
You see what I'm saying? Which because I'm like, come on, that's a fine
it is,
line to cut.
And if that's the case, because if that's the case, then so is Amazon. So it's just
right, and that's the thing because you said by posting hateful content. Well, who posted it for Kyrie to see in the first place?
Right.
Amazon Prime Video.
Right. And again,
but Kyrie's not going to pay you millions or possibly $1 billion to carry your content across their platform. Should have had a V8.
And again,
I should have woke up a billionaire. Man, then I could do what I want.
Hey, when Dave Chappelle said it, and he made light of it, but it was so funny to me. He said, people, talking about, that. The Jews. He killed me with the Jews.
Right. Yeah. He's like nothing good follows after.
Right.
Nobody does well after saying that.
They're heavily in certain areas,
mm-hmm.
Hollywood, Brooklyn, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say they run it. He's like, I understand the thought. I wouldn't have said it.
Right.
But I understand that. He's like, there's a lot of black people in Ferguson.
Right.
Like,
that doesn't mean that they run Ferguson.
That don't mean they run anything. Whatever.
Right.
Like, I get it. And so, even for that, it's like, sometimes I believe it is, let's see how much power we really, really have.
Right. Well, and this is what I think makes the Jewish community very sensitive. And I think they have reason to be sensitive. I just think this is an overreach. But no, I mean, in the sense of the worldwide population, they're an endangered species.
I get it.
In terms of the global, they're 2% of the American population, but it's like a fraction of a percentage globally. They're not a large people group.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Now, through their business dealings and them sticking together as a community, they wield an outsized influence on certain, business structures based on their percentage of the global population. But there's not a lot of them. So, it's kind of like, someone that is not as able to defend themselves, it's like they can maybe defend themselves against one attacker at a time. Mm-hmm. But if something were to happen where they allowed 2 or 3 things to kind of pile up on them, they'd get overcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Even someone that's a skilled fighter, a trained fighter, eventually the numbers will just overwhelm you.
Right.
2 people for someone that's trained, not a problem. 3 people, yeah. But once you start getting past 4 and 5, and I'm speaking to you from having been in those type of situations, the numbers will get to be too great. You just can't. They don't even have to be that good.
Right. It's just too many of them.
There's just too many of them.
Numbers always win. I get it.
So I think that's a subconscious community subconscious thing that it's like, hey, we've got to squash anything immediately because we can't deal with having that type of thing happen to us. Does that make sense? Because it happened before and you see what happened.
Their place in population makes them sensitive. Their past makes them sensitive.
Not just their place in terms of their rank, but also literally their place on the map.
Yeah.
Look at who surrounds the nation of Israel.
Hey, I mean, I get it, but again, a lot of cultures,
mm-hmm.
and that even if we don't, and I don't want anybody to take this as being unsensitive or not sensitive. A lot of cultures can say that.
Yeah,
I'm our place, our population, our past. How it affects our potential, like all of that makes black people
Correct.
Sensitive. But you can't be so sensitive that everything is meant. I heard somebody say in an interview on CNN talking about the Kyrie thing, these kind of, him linking that or sharing that as a tweet is what causes people to run him out, in our temples and like,
who's running up in
come
temples,
on,
bro?
like that.
Nobody's running up
and Dave Chappelle said it like, hey, Kyrie's black tail wasn't nowhere near the Holocaust. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like everything doesn't mean that. And again, I get it because black folk are sensitive. Mm-hmm. I feel like Hispanics to a certain degree, or have been done wrong and are sensitive. A lot of cultures have that, but not everything means that somebody's trying to annihilate you.
Oh no, I totally agree. I'm just saying, I can see. But even in comparing that, 2% versus 13% versus 15%, in terms of Jewish, black, Hispanic, there's a, we got 10 times there.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
About 2% globally.
No, 2% in America.
Okay.
It's like a fraction of a percentage globally. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's very, very small. It really isn't close, in terms of that deal. But, I mean, the difference, I say something that's, a unique characteristic is that the Black American, and I don't say African American because I'm talking about people who have never been to Africa, never been to Africa and can't trace their lineage back to somewhere in Africa. But, and also Black Americans and Africans don't really deal with each other.
Right. Right. It
might as well be different people
in
groups. Some respects, there's acceptance, but it's not like
it's brother.
Right. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Right. In some cases, they look down on us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And again, that's not the whole community.
Right. Right.
Certain individuals have the tendency.
Please send emails to Sean at the TBTShow.com.
But I mean, and the sad part is that you got to make these disclaimers.
Yeah.
Now because you can't just get a thought off, and just speak in conversation. So we have to give the disclaimers and we have to give this and that. And because no one's allowed the opportunity to make a mistake.
Right.
And so sadly, but that's the difference. Someone that's Jewish can go back to Israel. Someone that's Irish can go back to Ireland. Someone that's Japanese can go back to Japan. Where does a Black American go?
Yeah.
What sovereign nation can the Black American, call to for aid in America?
Right.
Nowhere.
Right.
That's one thing I think is unique about our community. And I think that gives us, in a lot of ways, more understanding than other groups towards the Jewish community.
Right.
I mean, there are some parallels there. Now, I'm not going to get into degrees and, as some people say, compare atrocities and all that different stuff. But I don't think that that's what Kyrie was trying to do.
Right. I don't think so either.
I don't even think that was what Kanye was trying to do.
No.
Nothing like that. But as Dave Chappelle said, Kanye messed up so bad that Kyrie got in trouble.
Right.
Basically, that was the ripple effect, the aftermath of Kanye swept up Kyrie.
Right.
But so I find it interesting. We got Jon Stewart and we have Adam Silver. Both are conceding, but yet, Kyrie is still expected to do the 6 labors of Hercules, the 6 labors of Kyrie, in order to get back into the good graces
of people that will never let him back into their good graces.
Right.
So why try?
Right. And my deal is like, hey, all that different stuff, where is the accountability for, hey, Prime Video, take this down? That's the part that bothers me the most.
And I didn't get I was looking for an official site that said it, but sales have gone up.
Oh, it's number 1. It's number 1, like, paid documentary. Oh, yeah. They're raking it in.
And
ringing the cash register, buddy.
The whole while, everybody's mad at Kanye.
Crying all the way to the bank.
Everybody's mad at Kyrie. Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos is making grand theft money.
Yeah. That's what he always does. But they are kind of having a bad, little bit. They did have to lay off a lot of people.
Oh.
Amazon.
They had to? They chose to. They chose to.
They chose to,
Dipping into my profits. Let's trim the fat.
Yep. Which I'm trying to figure out, because they had reports of Amazon drivers having to relieve themselves in bottles in the truck. So I'm like, busy. Where did you have room to cut people?
Right.
Sound y'all running pretty thin in the skin in the first place.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure it's not any delivery people. They probably eliminated some office dwelling.
I'm sure.
Cubicle occupying type of situation. It's nobody
put their hands on packages.
Yeah, no, that's what's not getting cut.
Yeah.
Now they decided, hey, we'll give this one programmer. Now you got to do Joey's work and your work.
Jobs.
You got to do 2 jobs, and
we'll
pay you for
your last hour of the day.
1.2.
Go move.
Right.
Line 1.
Can you drop this off?
Yeah.
On your way home?
Load line 1 up in that truck right there.
Yeah, right? You make these deliveries on your way home?
Right. Right.
And so, but yeah, that's the deal.
Right.
And so, but no, actually, not to get too much into, economics and the stock stuff, but actually, the stock price has fallen so much for Amazon and Google and Tesla that Apple is worth more than all of them combined.
Wow.
Yeah. Via stock price.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised about, really neither one of them, really.
Yeah. Oh, and I think Facebook was in there too.
I know Twitter's on the great decline.
Yeah, it's and he's tweeting Elon is tweeting up a storm every day. His average daily tweets is going up.
He the only one using it.
CPR, buddy. He spent all this money. But yeah, so Apple is now worth more than Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, Amazon, and Meta put together. Sorry, but I think that you could probably squeeze Tesla in there at one point. But even just that right there, Apple being worth more than Meta, Amazon, and Alphabet. But, the only person that actually really sells a significant amount of physical products is Apple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how long that'll stick. But at one point, I think on November 4th, they were more valuable than all 3 put together. Yeah.
Wow.
So, crazy times.
Yeah. Last week, I know we kind of talked on the elections and what kind of happened. You felt like it was a setup that for election to come, of which I guess this week kind of proved.
Oh, they messed up the setup.
Yeah,
they messed up the setup. And you can, if you're in the Republican Party, you can thank Ted Cruz for that. He was 0 for 8 in the Republican candidates that he campaigned with. All of them lost. All of the election deniers that Trump's tried to prop up, they all lost too. After we're supposed to get the red wave, we really got a red ripple and a blue splash, the blue lagoon. And so, so I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around. So everybody's trying to figure out, who do we blame? Do we blame Mitch McConnell? For, how whatever role he played in candidate selection and platforming? Is it Ted Cruz's fault? Is it Donald Trump's fault? And the answer is yes.
Right.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And everybody just
D, all of the above.
Right. Correct. Exactly. D, all the above. And so, the Republican Party is, to a certain degree, imploding and, devouring itself.
Yeah.
To the point where billionaire and owner of Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, Australian gentleman, very conservative, right? He also owns a little newspaper you may have heard of called the New York Post. And this is how bad they're treating their once, star player, once brother beloved, right? Yeah. Donald Trump. He announced that he was going to run for president, and this is how the New York Post covered it. Okay, so if you look at the cover of New York Post At the very bottom, just a little banner. It says, Florida man makes announcement, page 26. That was the coverage for Donald Trump announcing for Mar-a-Lago his bid for the presidential Republican nominee for president.
So he's 2024 all the way from former President Trump or President Trump to now Florida man.
Florida man. Man, I tell you what. They used to pray for you, now they pray on you, buddy. it can happen just that quick.
Yeah,
but so now, I mean, and some Republicans have been going around trying to act like, oh, they're so disappointed, like Ted Cruz, like they just saw it coming from afar. Oh, I knew, and they were the ones out there talking about, oh, it's gonna be a red wave. We're gonna have a 30-seat lead in the House and this and that and da. Now they act like, oh no, man, we never red what?
Never said
red
that.
wave? Who said that? Oh, that was a week ago. Me, that wasn't me. But Trump propped up these election denying candidates, and they all lost. So now he doesn't have the infrastructure to attack the integrity of the electoral system to get him what he can't actually get votes for.
So now that he doesn't, do you think they go with? Do you think their representative?
I've already said it before, but I'll go ahead and confirm what I've already said.
Will be
the future is DeSantis. And I said this. You can go check the record. I said this probably a month ago, and way before there was even the shadow of the election.
Because. And a friend of mine, who I'm gonna reach out to him and see if he'll come hang out with us one week. Damian Thaddeus Jones, good dude. I met him actually some years ago when he was assisting Beto running for senator.
Gotcha.
And he's run for some office. I can't remember exactly what, but he tweeted a question a couple days ago. If you had to choose between Mike Pence, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, who do you think the Republican candidate would be?
DeSantis, all day, every day. 100%. I think Trump is
he's yesterday.
He's old news, buddy. And now, I mean, literally, you had on Fox News, they're calling him a loser. The one thing that Trump had going for him, even being out of office, was the fear. That hey, if you don't get in line with Trump, then you're out of line with the Republican Party. He lost that. He lost people understand how the illusion works now.
Right.
They know the magic trick.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of a little more difficult to be amazed when you know how he hides the card up his sleeve.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. And again, I think that the more time goes, the more even those that used to be considered to be Trumpers, the more they'll try to put some space in between.
They are 100%.
Yeah, that America and
yeah, because what's going to end up happening is that even people that might really like Trump in terms of personality, they're going to eventually be confronted with who's going to have the best chance to win.
Right.
And then they're going to get behind DeSantis. And Mike Pence, he's just, I mean, after January 6th, it was over.
See, and I think the plan was...
It shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't.
But it is.
And I think the plan was...
Because Mike Pence is probably the most adult of the three.
Honestly, of the three, he's the Republican.
And he's the only Republican.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd say DeSantis,
come on.
A little more. No. Pence is definitely the Republican in terms of like ideologically. Trump is a populist.
I don't know what he is.
DeSantis,
they're still trying to figure out.
Populist.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what
if
they
Trump
would call
is a populist, DeSantis is a hybrid of.
Yeah, he's kind of in the middle.
Right.
He's in the middle between.
Right.
But
Pence
the
is
two of them.
the prototypical Republican.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the plan was Trump tear the country up for 8 years, and Pence come
then
behind
prop up
you
Pence. Right. No, I'm sure that was
to save the day.
To save the day. Dun, dun,
and
dun, dun.
then now all of a sudden we look at the Republican like we did when McCain was the Republican.
Right. But here's the difference. When you look at Mike Pence and John McCain, you're looking at a glass of milk versus a maverick.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? A war hero,
a giant in the midget.
The problem with Mike Pence, and the thing is, I think that there's some admirable things, but he's milquetoast.
Yeah,
and he's got all the personality of a piece of sandpaper. So, in politics, it requires personality,
charisma.
You know, right, correct. You got to have that. Otherwise, you don't have. You can be a policy head, but that's for the Karl Roves and all the think tank guys, the power behind the throne guys.
Right.
But if you're going to be the front man,
the guy
in the chair, I mean, you got to have something.
Right.
I mean, at least Joe Biden has some cool shades.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, but there's something there. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. You may not like him, but it's like, he has his moments where it's okay. That was pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? And then even Trump says some wild stuff. But whenever he was talking to, and like, I like how Dave Chappelle brought out how A Star Was Born with Donald Trump when he told Hillary Clinton that I know the system is rigged because I use it.
Yeah, he said he's an honest liar.
An honest liar. You know what? I was wondering where he was going over there. Hey, but I totally understand. I get the point that he's making.
It was classic Dave Chappelle.
Classic. And so, and whenever you get a chance, you know, take a look at the sketches they did with House of Dragon with Dave Chappelle. That was entertaining as well. But in terms of Donald Trump, I think that's why a lot of people, he presented himself as the outsider. Mm-hmm. We've had 44 insiders. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like you. I just got $1 million loan from my dad.
The only difference between me and you.
Yeah, I just got $1 million loan from my dad and all the connections and head starts and all that different stuff. And but I'm like you. I'm Joe Sixpack. And so, but Donald Trump did, I think initially he was a breath of fresh air to a lot of people.
I think initially
it was kind of like, this dude might be, and I still think he is, but I think he got a little too drunk with power. But I think he started out with a good strategy. He was crazy like a fox.
Yeah.
He was crazy like a fox. But then once the machine got behind him and he's like, oh, I'm, indestructible. He got on the power high and then he just went way too far.
Right.
And like, we talked about Icarus, flew too close to the sun. And so, that was the deal.
The part that, man, y'all got to watch it. The part that Dave Chappelle said, why is he stealing files from the White House?
Right.
He was not reading his press.
Right. Who takes work home from work?
Yeah. I stole some other stuff, but not work.
Right.
Yeah. I hope they figure it out for the country's sake.
No, absolutely.
I just want it to be a decent representative because there's a very great probability that we won't re-elect President Biden.
He may not run again. I mean, he's waiting. He's waiting until after the runoff election in Georgia between Warnock and Walker.
That would be a decision.
He's waiting because he doesn't want to influence that.
Right.
Because I think he doesn't want to influence that, and it could swing that for some people one way or the other. So he doesn't want to say anything until that's done. I think that's a wise move. But as you said, for the sake of the country, we got a lot of things going on internationally.
Yeah.
And sometimes whenever you got stuff going on with the celebrities, be careful not to just look at what's going on with just the celebrities, because, and I'm not trying to get into Illuminati conspiracy theory, but sometimes it's like, hey, pay attention to this over here while we do this over here.
Right.
There's a China and Russia are attempting to build a new cryptocurrency backed by gold. So we got enemies at the gates.
Right.
China has been, I don't think they will act on it because they know that Taiwan is a NATO ally, but China just dismissed every American that's working for a Chinese company on chipsets because there's some trade stuff going on right now that's making it really difficult for China to compete, in terms of making chipsets, because all the electronics that you use, they all, rely on chips. Every little button in your car relies on a chipset. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so Taiwan is the world's largest producer of these, and they're a non-NATO ally. They're not a member of NATO, but we have an agreement to defend them. And China has always, we kind of have a strained relationship with China over the status of Taiwan, because Taiwan says, hey, we're a sovereign nation. And China's like, no, y'all are part of China. Right. You belong to us.
Right.
So there's some things that are going on. Right. So we need a return of statesmanship.
Right.
And I feel like that's what, when I look at the landscape, that's what we're sorely missing. Where are the John McCains? Where are the Colin Powells?
Right.
Where are the John Kerrys? The guys that were, of course, they had one side, they were a Democrat or Republican, but you had people that would come together and work for the common good and set party aside and establish nonpartisan, initiatives. Because if we're not careful, we're going to end up just like Rome, which no one defeated Rome from the outside. They imploded.
Right.
And the markers, if you want to see it laid out there, I think if you go to Tubi, which is a streaming platform, TUBI, if you look at Francis Schaeffer has a 10-part series called How Shall We Then Live?
Yeah.
And he goes over the decline of empire and all the things that went on, and a lot of the things that preceded the fall of the Roman Empire was decline of morality, grotesque games, so you notice how we have UFC and we have some of these other combat sports, which I know they've kind of reeled that back in. But mainly the decline of morality, and you end up having things that are highly partisan internally, and you end up having either a civil war, or you're just so weakened,
right?
That
is just
that when one person that is the last person that's barely holding it together, something happens controversially with their power structure, and then all of a sudden you fall apart. Then you got people trying to seize power and all these different things. Yeah. So if we're not careful, the rapid decline of morality in this culture, in American culture, the culture wars, these type of things that are going on, can tear us apart.
Yeah. I just, I hope it doesn't. I know in a mindset of that other political mindset, we don't have that live and let live. It is that I'm going to tell you what is right and wrong, even though I may not do what I tell you. But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that, cultural divide, and that's what happens. That's what happens. You have anything going on this week that you want to?
I got too much stuff going on, man. I'm trying to filter it down. Yeah. But in terms of like events,
big time busy.
Buddy, busy this time of year, especially. By the time this airs, we're going to be going into Thanksgiving next week. So wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, yeah. Man, it doesn't seem like this is where Thanksgiving already. But
I'm telling you, man, we're already there.
We're what, 7 days from Thanksgiving?
Yeah. It's next Thursday. Next Thursday. So
yeah.
I know as far as Good Shepherd, we have our 3G fellowship that's coming up. next week on on the 20th, but that'll probably be after this airs. But yeah, man, I mean, I think that everybody's getting into that Thanksgiving mode.
Yeah,
so
that feel.
Hopefully you can not just. I mean, I wish you blessed time with family and friends, but not just that we would receive blessings, but that we would be a blessing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. to someone else, because not everybody, especially around this time of year. Check on your friends that may be living in a city that's away from their family, that are especially single, right, young adults, stuff like that, because this can be a real tough time of year for people that are not near their family.
Right.
So just take the time to be a blessing to those that are less fortunate, or to those that just may not have, they may not be near or have the ability to travel back to visit their family and friends, and so just be mindful of that and try to include them if you can.
Yeah. And good you mentioned that, because this has been a rough year for a lot of people. So those that we know have had a rough year, sometimes we suffer in silence, and seasons like this break your back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. It's that straw.
Yeah.
That, and so like Sean said, man, just don't, thank God for blessing you, but God always send a blessing to who He can send a blessing through.
There you go.
Be a blessing to somebody else. And so we've our family unit has decided to sponsor a couple families just to make sure that people have what they need, man. I encourage all of us to do the same. So and again, join us on upcoming episodes. Like, share, subscribe, be a part of this journey. We're headed somewhere. I'm going to convert Sean by hook or crook. So like, share, subscribe, join us on this journey. And again, have a happy Thanksgiving, friends and family. And again, look out for each other, pray for each other, watch over each other. All we have is each other. And so until next week, we'll see you guys on another episode of the TBT Show.